Okay, so we have our facing sewn on to our bodice neckline now, and we've clipped and understitched it. Now we need to go ahead and press it towards the back. Okay, so let me just grab pressing ham, and I'm just going to fold this towards the back, and you can see now when you do that, because we've understitched it, it should bring back about a 1/16 of an inch or so of the fashion fabric. Okay, and if it's bringing back too much, just push it back, and if it's not bringing enough back, pull it forward. Okay, and I'm just going to give this a quick pressing. I'm doing it over ham again. This is a curved bodice. It's formed to the human body, so we need to make sure that we're pressing it over something that can also form to those curves to give it the best press possible. Okay. Take your time going around your curves. And right in there. Okay, and then here too. Okay, there we are. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a hidden slip stitch, tacking this all the way down. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I've taken a needle and thread, and I've threaded my needle with 2 strands of thread, and we're going to do the hidden slip stitch. When we do this, we want to travel down the crease of this facing, okay, and we'll just catch the lining layer, all right, when we do that. So I'm going to start right here and just lock my needle and thread in. I have a knot there at the end of it. And I'm just going to make a little loop and go through it to kind of anchor my thread in place. Go. I'm doing that so it hides underneath the facing. Okay. And now I'm just going to catch right inside. This is the hidden slip stitch. Right inside that facing. I'm traveling down the crease of it. Pull. And then come out, catch just a little bit of the lining right behind that facing and go right back into that crease. Travel for about a 1/2 inch. Keep doing that as you go. Now, as I'm doing this, I know I already pressed the facing, but I don't want it to roll back or anything to the front. So I'm going to kind of push it down as I'm going to make sure it's right in place where I want it to be. And again, I'm only catching the lining. I don't want to go through to the fashion fabric. And I've also pinned the lingerie straps out of the way. So we're going to do this all the way. You can see if you're doing it right, it should hide your you shouldn't see any stitches at all if your thread is matching and you're catching it correctly. This fashion fabric is pretty easy to hide stitches into. It's pretty busy, and you can see you can go pretty fast. We're almost to the front. When we get to the front, we're going to have to hide our facing there. Remember, we left extra right at center front, which we want to be able to work with. Always better to leave a little extra than not enough, because it's not enough when it comes to sewing. You got to take it off and redo. So if you have extra, you can typically, generally speaking, you can typically cut it back. Fold it under, do something with it. Okay. Here around the curve, you definitely have to kind of push that forward and get it in. Now, one thing to note, we might have a little bit of ease in the facing, okay, which is fine because this is curving in and getting smaller where the facing is one length. It's a little longer, so we might have to ease it in there, and that's okay. Make sure you're really pulling that facing to the back or to the wrong side of the garment. You don't want any of that coming out on the front. We ease this in. We might have to take smaller stitches. I've been taking about 1/2 inch stitches. We might have to go a little smaller, maybe 1/4 inch, 3/8, and just kind of ease it in. Again, I'm really pulling that facing to the wrong side, to the lining side here. And I'm just easing it around. Taking about 1/4 inch stitches now. You can see it's kind of easing right in there. And some fabric's going to ease better than others. Okay, we're almost to center front. Take a few more stitches and I'll adjust my facing. And we'll stop right there. Now, here's my facing right here. Let me see if I flip it around this way, if that looks a little better. Okay, so there's my facing. It's much longer than we need it. We can see on the inside here where I come down to a V, and I've snipped my seam allowance there and there. Okay, so I'm going to move one facing. I'm going to move this side facing out of the way. This is the one I'm stitching on. I'm going to bring this one. Now I have like an extra 2 inches here. I'm going to trim that back to about 1/2 inch. There we go. So I removed that. Now, here's the seam allowance again of my bodice. I'm going to fold that 1/2 inch of facing that I have going past it right around like so, and then fold it under. Folding it around that, and then under like so. Okay, and let's go ahead and put a pin in it just to hold it in place for now. Okay, so that's nice and clean finished around the edge, and I can finish stitching that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side just to get out of the way. Alright, so again, I'm going to trim this facing back. Alright, I don't need all this extra. I just left it just in case there's some issue, to about 1/2 inch. And then there's my seam allowance. I'm going to fold that facing around the seam allowance, sandwich it in there, and then fold it under. Like so. And I'll pin that in place. Like so. Okay, so now I can finish my hand tacking around this. Let me flip this around. You can see I'm kind of around this curve of the neckline of the bust, so I don't really need to ease it anymore. I'll go back to my regular kind of 1/2 inch bites. Secure, and now I can just come up this edge right here and continue that slip stitch. And I'm at the end. I'm going to go ahead and tie off. Kind of create a loop. Go through that loop twice. And there we go. Okay, so you can see it's nice and tacked down now. That looks nice on the inside. Okay. And then once we get our closure in, we'll finish the bottom. Okay, so then there's the front of it. All right, so I just need to do this side. I'll quickly do this side, and then we'll get this ready to put our closure in. Okay. There we go. So there's the facing, hand tacked down. So it looks like from the wrong side. That's what it looks like from the right side. All right. So we're getting very close. All we have left to do is basically put our closure in at center back. And there's a few steps for doing that. Okay, so that will be our next video.